Welcome, everyone, to Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. In this series, we chat with real estate investing professionals and experts to learn about it, to gain knowledge, to learn about things that they've done wrong, and how they've overcome it, so that we can learn from it. We also speak to experts on about tips and about building our teams and getting to know these experts, so that we can build the best teams that we have, so that we can put together our personalized real estate investing strategy. Each of us is unique, so each of us should have a very unique strategy that welcomes our individuality, that empowers what we have as investors, whether it is our skills, our likes, our dislikes, our dreams, our goals, how much money we have, how much time we have, what do we want to give back to society? All of those things can come together to create our personalized real estate investing strategy. When we create a strategy that's customized for us, it gives us purpose. It gives us, when the times are tough, and we all know that real estate investing is a roller coaster. It's not all, like flowers and fireworks and, all those great things. So, we need things that will get us through and sustain us through that time to push through. So as for myself, if you don't know already, my name is Debbie Balfour. I'm a real estate investor. I'm a short-term rental host, and I'm also a real estate investing success coach. And I help my clients to put together and build their personalized real estate investing strategy, as I was discussing, along with helping them scale efficiently. And what I mean by that is helping you build in systems and tools and the right team today as a novice investor, so that you can scale and also give yourself back time, so that you're working on the business instead of in the business. I am very excited today to introduce to you my special guest, Fernando Nunes. And Fernando is, let me read this so that I don't miss anything or get it wrong. So Fernando has spent over 25 years as a sales and business growth leader and executive, which he brings that knowledge into real estate investing. Having worked with some of the global's largest and most recognized brands, generating over 200 million in sales. He has been relied on to deliver, world-class experiences and strategies, contributing directly to business growth. Like that is really amazing. And in real estate investing, we know that, sales is critical. Negotiation is critical in finding the right deals, to even working with our investors. And also within sales, it's all about relationships and building those relationships. So bringing that behind him and then transitioning into real estate investing is so powerful and such great skills. As an investor, Fernando has parlayed this experience into acquisition and partnerships and a mastery of business growth. He's now taking his business international, starting with strategic investments in the desirable Portugal market, which is one of the reasons why I've asked Fernando to come and speak with us today, as well as launching a coaching business and paying it forward and helping young entrepreneurs learn how to maximize their sales potentials and reach exponential business growth. So that's just a summary. So let's get into more, Fernando, about your journey when it comes to real estate investing. Tell us a bit about how you got involved and where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thanks for including me in this and letting me share my story, and hopefully inspiring some along the way, as you're kind of set out to do with your coaching and whatnot. So, for me, I came from very modest beginnings, right? We're talking like government housing as a kid, single parent, single mom raising me. Me, my mom, my sister lived in a one-bedroom apartment at one point together. And so, growing up, money was one of those things that seemed out of reach, right? You develop that relationship of money is bad. I hate money. And all
It's
that is
wrong to
born
want
from this.
money.
What's that?
We were taught it's wrong to want to be rich. That's kind of like evil.
Yeah, it's selfish, right? Like you shouldn't want that. You just want to be happy.
Mhm.
The old saying that, um, money doesn't buy happiness, and
I don't believe that it does.
it doesn't hurt, right? And I don't think in its, I think what money does is it amplifies anything that's already going on in your life, right? So
Definitely.
if you are negative and you're focused on negative things, it probably turns you into a bit more of that. But if you are a person who likes to give, who likes to build experiences, money gives you access to those things. So it's not a bad thing, but when you're raised in kind of poverty, for lack of a better term, that's sometimes the relationship that you develop. So I was watching this, yet I knew that anyone who I saw as successful, and I'm not talking about like multi-billionaires, I'm talking about people in my life,
Mhm.
um, uncles, friends, aunts, other relatives, other people that were around me that seemed rich to me. All of them had one thing in common, and they had properties, right? They had apartments. They were somehow landlords. And so I guess somewhere along my, teen years, I started to recognize, I'm like, okay, well, this is what I have to do, right? We were tenants for so long that you're like, okay, well, the person who owns this place is doing okay then. And so you just kind of start building this into your mind. And so, it took me a little while to get going. I moved out when I was 16 years old. And so it took a little bit to kind of build up my own access into housing and whatnot. Luckily, I had some help from my mom and my family to really help get me going. And then once I was there, I started buying property. Well, I bought my first house at 21, and no, sorry, I was 23 when I bought my first house, and it was the intent of fixing it up, and I did. Right, redid the kitchen just in whatever cosmetic flips I could. I added a bathroom in the basement, which I'll tell you, if you've ever had to add a bathroom into a basement that's never had one before, it is a job.
Oh, I can
So did that, and then within a year, kind of sold it, made some money, and so I kind of learned, right? This is how you start doing these things. So fast forward a little bit, built up a bunch of equity in the houses that I'd acquired with my then wife, and then we split in 2012. And so what happened through this split is I went through like a big life change, right? I um quit my job. I was working in a sales job. This is in 2012. I was making over $100,000 a year, which is good money in 2012, right? Especially for a kid who's like, 32 years old. And so I just completely reset my life. I quit that job. I sold that house. The marriage split up. And then because I was starting all over again, I couldn't afford to buy a house anymore because I couldn't qualify for the mortgage. Real estate prices jumped. And all of a sudden, I was in this position where I was finally ready to buy my first two investment properties, which I was going to do like a rent to own strategy. And then after going through the split, I was reset
Mhm.
completely back to zero. And I basically complained for 10 years, right? I complained that I couldn't afford this and I couldn't afford that. And I had that old mentality that I think we revert back to, right? Of being the poor kid.
Being the
Um,
victim and yeah.
yeah, it's almost like this self-fulfilling thing. You come up thinking and being told that you're probably just poor, and then these things happen, and you're like, there it is. But really, what it is, it's me. It's me inviting that in. It's my mentality. And because here's why I say that. Fast forward those kind of 10 years, almost 10 years, about 8 years. And I was with my cousin, who was one of the people who I looked at as like having these rental properties and being like, okay, this is one of my examples. And he had some friends over at his lake, and um, they're all having this conversation. They were talking about this person they know. They're in a smaller market than I am. I lived with them actually for a little while, so I know the market well. And they were talking about this person, this property, did well, sold it to a developer, had it for a few years, sold it to a developer, made a ton of money. And it was just part of that conversation, sitting at this table with five other people, who none of them were, it's not like we're sitting there with CEOs or anything like that. There was a firefighter, a person who owns a roofing company, a person who works for that roofing company, a person who is a teacher, and another person is another tradesman. Okay. So these five people, none of them have like inherited money, and they all have rental properties. Right.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm an idiot. right? Because I spent 10 years complaining because I couldn't afford anything where I was, but I could have probably bought two rental properties in this town. And fast forward that same, 8, 9 years, I probably have hundreds of thousands of dollars built up in equity. Assuming not more, because assuming by in those 10 years, I wouldn't have already parlayed that equity into maybe a
Into
third and
more
a fourth
investors.
and a
Yeah.
fifth property, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, I've wasted so much time. And that was it. That was that decision at that point. So this is in 2020. And I decided to make a change. And so first thing I did is I went out and I seeked mentorship, right? So I hired a coach. And my plan was to compress time, right? To be able to catch up and learn through others' knowledge. And so I did. So in 2020, I started partnering with some folks to be able to reach some kind of scale between 2020 and 20, like late 2021, through a few different partnerships, was able to acquire 7 properties. At the peak was that kind of 22 doors that I know everyone likes to brag about, right? Is how many doors do you have? I don't know why. And it's
It's not
misleading.
about
So
doors, it's about the money you make.
100%. And here's the thing is like, and because you brought up transparency in the beginning, and transparency is very, very important to me, right? Don't get caught up in the hype of what doors mean, because one of those properties was a 12-bedroom rooming house, right? Which is great, but it's not like a 12-unit building, like apartment building, right? And this was a property that, although valuable, it's misleading when you start saying like 22 doors. So I want to say that in terms of transparency. So, anyways, fast forward through this growth, and I've learned a ton, but it also taught me a lot about myself and what I want as an investor, and recognize that that wasn't it for me. I didn't really connect with buying these small single family homes, small multifamily, right? Duplexes, fourplex, things like that, because it wasn't giving me enough of a return on my time. But it also didn't feel like I was making enough of an impact with it either.
Yeah.
So you kind of go on this journey to learn where you want to go as an investor. And so more recently, I've made decisions in terms of what I want in terms of scale. So there's 2 things that I'm focusing on. One, initially my pivot was to go into self-storage. I know it seems like a crazy about face, but I started to look at it and explore like larger multifamily for a better return on time. And then into, okay, well, self-storage is an excellent asset like
No
that.
toilets, no tenants.
No toilets, no tenants, no drama,
No,
right?
yeah.
And so I was like, this is so much better. And that's where I kind of started diving into. And then my passion project, what I always tell people is, and why we're here, investing in Portugal. My background is Portuguese. My parents are from there. And whenever I'm there, I feel this incredible connection to life, um, to the balance of prioritization of family and your well-being and your happiness over things. And I think you find this in a lot of warmer climates. It's not exclusive to Portugal, but there's something special that's there. And anyone who I've talked to who's been to Portugal says the same thing, right? Like it's just a different place. And um, when I started going there as an investor, I had this thought of I need to create spaces for people to be able to come to find that inspiration, that connection to, I've never met those people all the time. I've never met someone who goes and stands on a beach at the edge of the water with it rolling up to their toes and looks at it and goes, "This really pisses me off." I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on your podcast,
Of
but like
course, yes.
this really like makes me mad,
Mhm.
right? I've never known anyone to do that. Usually people sit there and they do that, and there's this sense of peace and calm that comes.
Serenity and yeah, I mean, water for me and mountains, those two things like just help me to just relax and my energy changes and yeah,
Percent,
definitely.
right?
Hmm.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, I need to be able to create spaces for people to come and find this connection. We live in an age where people are awakening to the sense of, you're not tied to your geographic anchor, right? And The new American dream, or the new dream for people, is to create time freedom and geographical freedom
Yes.
to do what they want, where they want, when they
When they
want to,
want. Yep.
right? That's the new dream. It's
Hmm.
not work hard. I mean, you work hard, but it's not the put in 50 hours a week, putting in overtime and working as hard as you can at the same company for 30 years, like it was for our grandparents. It's not even the hustle culture of our generation and the generation that came just right after us. It is the time freedom, right?
Definitely.
And so being able to create spaces where people can go and feel that inspiration to kind of unlock their minds became really, really important to me. And then and lastly, and I'll take a pause here, is while I started to discover the market more, there's a housing shortage, I think, pretty globally, right? I think most developed countries that you go into, you'll hear that affordable housing is harder to come by now. And Portugal is, of course, part of that. It's become an absolute hotbed for investment and for people wanting to retire there. And the reason is that it's inexpensive. It's got a great healthcare system, excellent climate, good food, good infrastructure, good people, mostly English speaking. But the inexpensive part draws in money from bigger countries, the UK, Germany, France, North America. But the reality is that people there don't make a ton of money. That's what makes it cheap, right? That's what makes it inexpensive for us to go there with our big money. And so along the path, it became really, really important for me as well to create affordable living for like long-term accommodation for people who live there, right? Young people, especially who are looking to start their careers, maybe, and they need to move from one of the rural communities because a lot of the population is made up through rural communities that kind of go around the cities. So to be able to create maybe space within those urban centers for if you're moving in from one of those communities, the minimum wage in Portugal is 820 euros a month. So if you're paying 600 euros for a one bedroom apartment, that's impossible.
Yeah,
So what do
and
you
just
do? Do you
for
just sorry, go ahead.
everybody's kind of thing, a euro, I just checked it yesterday, is 1.48
Yeah.
Canadian dollars.
Yeah, so
So
you're talking about 1,200 bucks a month,
yeah.
right? So if your rent is $900 a month, like what are you going to do? And so people, what are they supposed to do? Just not leave their homes, not move to the city, not start their career. So if I can create spaces where, we can get into a place where you have like a shared accommodation. So you have a room with a bathroom, a desk to work at, maybe a small fridge in your room, and it's 300 euros a month, right? So like 450 a month. Does that create more of an opportunity now for you to be able to go and start that life, launch your career, right? Move to the
Mhm.
city, get your life going. I think so. And so that became again an important part of my mission is to create affordable housing.
Right. And so now that you're starting looking at our Portugal as an investment opportunity, what other opportunities have opened up for you now that you're like, okay, that's where I eventually want to be. But now I see like the opportunities to not just a vacation place, but to help the people that live there. What other opportunities have opened up for you?
So it's interesting. As soon as I start talking about investing in Portugal, all kinds of people come out of the woodwork, right? And there's a
Like
tremendous
me.
amount of interest. Yeah, exactly, right. But there's so much
I'm half
interest in.
Portuguese. It really appeals.
And I think people see that. People see again that quality of life, and they start to, open up about it. And whether it's vacationing, whether it's retiring there, I've had friends who are like, I want to retire in 10 years and I want to start looking at a place now, right? So what can we do? And so, helping them out. Um, so the other opportunities that have come up is, the more conversations I start to have, so there's a few things. As I start to explore it, right, I had to teach myself a lot about how systems work there. I think anytime you're investing in any other country, and it doesn't matter if it's, as Canadians in the US, or if you're going to Mexico or, Costa Rica, Greece, it doesn't matter where you're going. Any new country is going to come with its own nuances, There are different tax rules. There are different problems that you might face. I was listening to a talk at a conference I was at last week, and a gentleman who invests in Costa Rica was talking about it. And like their big problem in a lot of cases is getting water to the property or water supply. And so he had to learn that and be like, okay, so what can I build here that can be served, like that the infrastructure will supply it with water, the right amount of water. So what am I allowed to build that's going to have the right amount of water supply to it? They told him that's what he built. So he's able to build quickly. Someone else didn't care. They just went to build what they wanted to build, and they've been waiting for a couple of years. And they can't build it because the supply is not there, right? So that's just one area. But like, so Portugal has all its nuances as well. Things that you have to know, where you can build, where you can get short-term licenses for short-term rentals, what the tax rules are, what the income rules are, right? So as a foreign investor, what do you do? What do you need? So, there's a lot of time educating myself in that space. So that's one piece. And then more recently, as part of my journey, I talked about in the short-term rental space, wanting to eventually one day maybe build a boutique hotel, right? Because that to me was kind of the progression, the evolution of doing short-term rentals to get to build like a boutique hotel. And so I started kind of, I guess, putting that out there in the universe, right? That one day I'd want this. And recently, over the last maybe month or so, I've had two boutique hotels sent my way, right? Where there's these opportunities. And so now I'm like, why not today? Right? Why not now? Why am I waiting 10 years? What's going to be different between today and 10 years? Somewhere along that path, I'm going to have to figure out how
Okay.
these hotels work, how to underwrite them, what the value is of them, what the acquisition process. Like, I'm going to have to figure all of it out. Whether in 5 or 10 years or today, why not make it today?
Hmm.
So it's a really cool opportunity. And I kind of posted on social media, the power of social media, that these are happening. And there's been a ton of interest of people wanting to, explore the possibility of who doesn't want to, go to an event and be like, what have you been up to? I'm a part owner in a hotel near the beach in Portugal. Like, right?
Yeah, that really gets you. Well, how did you do that? And how do I get that too? And
Right.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so important. I think like mindset is the biggest thing in any entrepreneurial
Great.
business thing is once you have the right mindset and you open yourself up to opportunities, then opportunities start coming to you. And it's not that it wasn't there before.
Right.
It's just that you yourself wasn't ready. Like you would have seen that boutique hotel and go, oh no, that's like years. I can't do that as yet. Right.
Correct.
But now we were able to say, well, why not now? This is what I do.
Yep.
So why not now? What will 10 years be? What will be different in 10 years? So I think that's amazing because there's so many people that I speak to and I ask, what's your big goals? What's your life goals? And they're like, I want to travel the world. I want to have some places in different places in the world. And, when do you plan on achieving that? Oh, maybe in 5, 10 years when, I've achieved my financial freedom. Well, why? Why don't you look at doing getting that place now and having other people pay for it for you and start to
Right.
like add one a year or whatever like that. So I think that's wonderful that you right away you saw it. We were like, what's the difference between I've got to learn it sometime. What's going to be,
Yeah,
the
no,
difference between
absolutely.
now and
And
then. So
yeah, and the first one, just like it was actually, so again, full transparency. The first one was I wanted to create a social media post because there's this place that I love in Portugal. It's called Albilush. It's like this fully functioning, like people live there, although it's more of a touristy area, village inside of these castle walls, right? It's unique. You don't find that in a lot of places, even in Europe where there are a bunch of castles and whatnot, right? It's a unique experience. And I love it there. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite places. And so I was like, conversation starter. Wouldn't it be cool to own a house, or have you ever wanted to own a house in a castle? Right. So I went online, I started looking to see if there are any listings. Nothing was available. They rarely come up, right? Properties in this castle rarely trade. But what I found was the hotel, which is literally attached to the wall of the castle, like not attached, but like it's the property line touches the wall of the castle, for sale. And I was like, okay, well,
That's
say something
close
about the
enough.
hotel. Yeah, it's close enough, right? And then it's as I was posting, I'm like, well, why don't I actually look about buying it? Like, what's so crazy about that?
Mm-hmm.
And so I contacted them. There's been a lot of back and forth about, trying to get the financials and signing NDAs and things like that to be able to get access to the information so I can properly underwrite it, to put in a legitimate offer on this. And so because I did that, because I took that small leap, I was at a conference, a couple of weeks later, and it was about in moving to Portugal. And so I met an investor focused realtor in that area and we got to chatting, hit it off. I actually missed most of the seminar stuff that was going on because I spent the whole afternoon talking to this dude and he was fantastic. And so as we were talking, he was not only tells me, he's like, I know the owners of the hotel and we kind of talked about it a little bit. And again, left a good impression on him. So he goes back and about a week after that sends me a listing for another hotel, which is 400 meters from the beach. Right. And he's like,
Wow.
I think you should actually really look at this one. It's a far better deal than the other one. And I haven't given him on the first one yet because I'm just going to try to negotiate with them on price. But he's like, I think you should look at this one. This is actually really good. There's room for expansion. There's like all this. And so it was that openness to be like, why don't I look at this hotel now? Right.
Mm-hmm.
That then led to a conversation with someone else who now looks at me as someone who's interested in hotels, who then sends me a note being like, here's a hotel that I think you should look at. And since then, it's opened me up to conversations with other people who are focused in hotels, in boutique hotels. This is what they do, and has opened up doors to conversations with these people who are excited to talk to me about this hotel, who might have their own investors who want to come in on something because they buy boutique hotels here in North America. But I mean, shoot, if you had someone doing it in Portugal, maybe be open to that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's taking that leap, it's following that, it's leaving yourself open to what the universe presents you, right? Can create these incredible opportunities and possibilities.
Definitely. And don't limit yourself. Like
Never.
think big. Think what would you, if you had time, opportunity, money, etc., what would it be that you would like to do? And
Yeah.
then, figure out how can I get it? There's ways definitely of getting it. And I love that. So you're looking at investing now in Portugal, but I did check out your website and you invest in the US too.
Yeah, so that was the focus in the self-storage side of things. Originally, it's funny, the thesis came along because I just didn't want to be a landlord in Canada anymore. I know there are some
Mhm.
markets that are great. It just wasn't for me anymore, so I wanted to focus in the US. And that translated itself into self-storage. And so that's where I've been looking to acquire properties within that kind of asset class and really in the Southeast US. And
Mhm.
so just learning to understand those markets, again, we talked about this, some of the differences, and like as a Canadian investor, what do you need to know about financing your property in the US, about legally owning property in the US, um,
Corporate
about
structure, your
all
structure.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Your corporate structure.
Corporate
That's
structure, right?
yeah.
Corporate structure as a Canadian, right? Are you planning to relocate to the US to actually run your business, right? So there are all these things that you need to kind of learn and figure out. But none of it scares me. Like when I started investing in properties, my properties are like 20 hours from me, 20 and 5 hours, right? In two different cities.
Mhm.
And so I've always been a remote investor. So if that's the case, like what difference does it make if I have
How
to,
many more kilometers it is?
right, if I have to get on a plane and fly to Northern Ontario to
Mhm.
check on my properties, or if I have to get on a plane and fly technically the same flight, like in terms of time,
Mhm.
to South Carolina,
I prefer South Carolina to door to
yeah,
door.
which direction are you going, right? Which one's going to bring you that happiness that we talked about of dipping your toes in the
Exactly.
water, where you get frostbite, or where you'll get some sunshine and some vitamin D. So yeah, then it just becomes about learning about the market, building your local power team that you can trust, building those relationships, and then everything's possible.
I think it's key what you're saying, though. I think it's really important. People just jump in head first to, oh, I want to invest in the US, and then they go and buy a property, or I want to invest in Portugal and they go and buy a property. Like thing. So it's so important to do your research and your due diligence ahead of time so that you're not, you're not actually tying up your money and then you can't actually do anything, or you've done something wrong, you're paying enormous amount of taxes. So it like take the time to do your due diligence, understand what you need as a foreign investor in that country, and get the right team in that country working with you, and it's the right team here. So maybe like accountants that know how to deal with international accounting, or US, US Canadian and those kind of
Yep.
things. So I think that that's key, is that you don't just jump in to do that due diligence, and and if you've got a coach that's familiar with that, even better, because it cuts down the time. Then you can run a lot faster
Yeah.
because they've got the right people, they've the knowledge. For you, Fernando, for in Portugal, for instance, do you need to be able to speak the language? So do you need like people there that be able to speak the language?
So, I mean, it certainly helps, right? And in the professional sphere, I think if you're looking
You
to build a
speak
business,
Portuguese, right?
I do
So
speak Portuguese.
yeah.
Yeah, I speak fluent Portuguese. I can read it. I can write it. So it
Mhm.
certainly helps. And that's what I was going to say. Sometimes in the professional sphere, I think that it helps because it opens you up to a market or a broader market of professionals that can help you out.
Mm.
Portugal, however, is a country that speaks like it's actually becoming a major commercial hub for Europe because of the amount of English speakers that they have there.
Okay.
So they've been teaching English in schools there since my mom went to school there in, like the 60s.
Hmm.
And so it is really like the second language they teach in school. A lot of the TV programs and movies they have are in English because it's as as much as there's like hundreds of millions of Portuguese speaking people in the world, Portugal itself only has a population of like 10 million people, right? Like there's not a lot.
Right.
And so there's not enough of a population to actually dub the movies into Portuguese,
Oh,
so they're in English. So they learn the language. So everywhere that you go in Portugal, and I mean, you can go to some small towns and people still speak English. There's been a huge amount of British folks from the UK that have moved over there again since probably the 70s, 80s, and even before that, really in the north. Port wine that Portugal is famous for, it was actually the British who really started creating not
oh,
the wine itself, but like globalizing it,
right.
right?
Hmm.
And so they've been there for decades, generations. And so English is very common. So you will find people who have been educated over in the UK and they come back like lawyers and accountants and all kinds of stuff. So you can get through just speaking English, whether you're on vacation or investing there, 100%.
That's good to know,
100%.
because I know in Italy it's the opposite. Like you have to be very careful. They're out there like, you know, they'll get you if you don't can't speak the language. And
Really?
yeah, it's kind of like there's some, I won't say mafia, but mafia kind of, there's a lot of like things, that you could get, like be involved in fraud and like,
Okay.
so get taken for a ride there.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's why I was asking about Portugal. If there,
Yeah, and Portugal is a very safe country, I think, to invest in general. Their banking system is quite conservative. Like, listen, are there people out there potentially looking to take advantage? Of course.
in any
I
country.
heard of a fellow investor who was looking to invest in a company that's there that apparently what they were doing is taking investment from folks and buying proper similar to what I wanted to do, right? Buying properties to turn them into like a shared accommodation.
Hmm.
And he got a weird feeling about this. And so he actually contacted a lawyer in Portugal to do the background check on this company and found out they have no record of this company actually existing. Right. So Is it out there? It's out there everywhere. So
Mm.
as an investor, and I will always say this, you have to do your due diligence. I don't care what side of it you're on, right? You have to do your due diligence in things. So this particular investor being a little obviously more seasoned, knew something's not right here. So he went and kind of did his due diligence and checked on it. So it does help, when you're able to build that relationship. What I'm hoping to do with my business and going over there is to create that familiarity, right? I'm a person here. You want to, come and meet me. We can sit down and I know a bunch of Portuguese restaurants I can take people to, right?
Mm.
And we can sit down and talk, and you get to know me personally and have trust in what I'm doing and verify me. And I will worry about the relationships that are there. I'm the one who's building them there with the realtors, the contractors, accountants, lawyers, consultants that can help get visas and all kinds of stuff. And so that's what I'm really hoping to do is create that bridge. Is
Nice.
create that bridge for people who want to explore the market, but don't necessarily have the time or even know where to begin.
I think that's the biggest thing is many of us in everything, it's like, where do I start? Like,
Yeah,
like, how do I find these lawyers? How do I find these realtors? Like that sort of stuff, definitely. Like which market is like where in Portugal are good markets to
correct.
invest? Those kind of things are really tough. And that's where knowing the right people really helps you, having those conversations with people like yourself that has been there and know the country, or have a team there. So
Absolutely.
that's awesome. So I
Absolutely.
will definitely be tapping into your tapping
Anytime,
more with
anytime.
you
That's
because
that's
I'm
honestly,
one
it
of
brings
those
me
people
happiness.
that are looking to retire there.
Yeah, it genuinely brings me happiness
Yeah,
to ask anyone who I've had a conversation with about this. Like, even in this, like you can see hopefully the passion when I
passion,
talk
yeah,
about it.
definitely.
Um, because it is I want people, whether it's Portugal or whether it's somewhere else that they feel connected with. I want people to expand their world. Another conversation that I have with people all the time is, we put this number in our head about what you need to retire. And here in Canada especially, but in a lot of North America, that number is like huge.
It's 1.7 million. I've done the research on it.
Yeah,
That we need to retire to be retire comfortably. Yet most people, the average person retires with only about just under 300,000.
correct. And a lot of that's because of the equity in their house,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Which
So
is
imagine
not,
you sold your house and took it
yeah,
somewhere else.
exactly. And so it's like that number that people often get here, in our space and the whole financially independent, retire early, fire, right? Is the sometimes it's like $10,000 a month is what people will get to. It's just over $100,000 a year. People are like, that's good income. I feel like I can, live off of that. I feel like I can retire. But we just talked about, in Portugal, like the average income. So we talk about minimum wage, but the average income is just under 1,300 euros a month, which translates to right around $2,000, just
1,000.
under 2,000, but 1,800 bucks Canadian, right? Um, so
We'd be at the welfare
correct, correct. Imagine you had $3,000 a month.
soup
Imagine you had
kitchens.
$5,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
You'd be living incredibly comfortable comfortably in a place like that. And it's not just there. Again, you can look at other places in Europe. You can look in places in Central America, South America. Panama is a place where a lot of people go to, and it's just because you have to look at the cost of living in those places. And so you start to open up your mind, right? So imagine you had, let's say you're an investor and you've worked hard over the last several years, and you're at maybe $3,000 a month of passive income. To here, you're not even putting your job yet. You can't, right? So you're
Mhm.
still busting your ass, working your job, plus running your properties. Now imagine you could go to a place like Portugal, and with $3,000 a month, you can comfortably live in a two-bedroom apartment in a city, go out for dinner at least once a week, go to the movies once every couple of weeks, um,
You're right by the
live
beach.
by the beach, right? And live this comfortable life
Mhm.
on $3,000 Canadian a month, right? But now you don't have to work a job. So you've already unlocked as an investor this knowledge of how to make money. But now you're living in a place that $3,000 a month already gets you the time freedom that you need to sit and think while you're sitting at a cafe, looking at the waves, right?
It
Um,
also helps your creativity.
correct.
Yep.
Having your little pastry, right? Drinking your coffee. And you're sitting there, and now you have this time to really think and expand your mind into, okay, how do I continue to create additional
Well,
income, additional wealth, so that I have the ability to give back even more,
mm,
right? To
starting
create
with
an
your
even
family.
bigger life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like it really, when you start opening up your mind to like, you're not tied. And we can talk about our families and all kinds of reasons that ties here. Those are just things that are driven out of fear.
The
Like once you start
excuses.
unlocking that,
Yeah.
like it totally opens up your world, right?
Because I bet my family would visit me more if I was in a place like that than I
Right.
see them when they're just down the road.
It's a solid excuse. It's a solid excuse,
Right, so
right?
yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah. So yeah, and I think it's amazing, and that's exactly what we're looking at. Like, in a few years, my husband leaving his job, and then I can coach from anywhere. I know I can do my real estate investing from anywhere, and that. But we want that money that we have to be able to go further because I started real estate investing same time as you, 2020, but I am 55. So my runway is a lot less, right? So it's like, so here's the opportunity to, I'm rebuilding my home right now. Say I sell my home for 1.5 million, and then I pay off my down payments on my HELOC, for like 600,000. Now I have like 900,000 to take with me, and then we just in my home, that money there to take and buy a nice comfortable place for us, but then have all this money to live off of, and of course invest and make more on it. But definitely,
so
so yeah, I can't do it here.
yeah. So imagine that you would take that $900,000, you actually put it into secured passive lending, right? Or something that's more
Mhm.
secured, and you're getting like a 9% return, which is not, it's not like a crazy return,
No, but
9%.
it's more of a low risk
Yeah, yeah. You
investment.
can do
Yeah.
private mortgages, first position, and still draw in 8 to 9%, right?
Yeah.
So so you're now taking um almost $90,000 a year, right? You're taking, it's what, $81,000 a year Canadian of income off just the interest, never touching your principal.
Mm-hmm.
Convert that into euros,
Euros.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you are 50 something thousand euros a year, which puts you in probably the 75th percentile of income in the country, right? So can you live comfortably there?
Yeah.
Right? With 50 something thousand euros, you're over 4,000 euros, or sorry, over 4,000 euros a month of income, right?
Mm-hmm.
Continuing to come in. This is not taking into account any of your rental income from your rental properties, nothing.
Yeah.
This is just that capital that you talked about. And we talked about this. That puts you at more than double. It puts you, in fact, at triple of the average income of someone that's there. You will live comfortably.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
you're all set to retire today if you want to, if
Mm-hmm.
you just, if it doesn't have to be here,
Yep.
right? If it's
Definitely.
to somewhere else, and again, whether it's Portugal or anywhere else, I'm using Portugal because it's the numbers I know, right? But you can look at other places in the world, and you're there. It's the, I won't just so you don't get into any, copyright infringements. I won't say who the bank is, but that bank's like, you're richer than you think, right? And
I love that saying. I
And
do. I
and
use it
it's
all the
true,
time.
you are, and you are closer to, or you are already there when you think about your retirement.
Yeah, so some of those people, when I have financial freedom, well, you you could have
Maybe you
financial
do.
freedom as long as you open up your mind to where, like
Yeah.
you taking that definitely. So
Yeah.
I mean, I've lived in, like, I was born in Guyana, in South America, and then I lived, I grew up in Ontario, but then I lived in England for 5.5 years.
Mhm.
My husband is English, so I brought him back here. All right. So I've lived in different places, worked in cruise ships and lived in America for a while. So yeah, I'm not, I'm not, I know that you don't have to stay where you are. And you could still have a place here in Canada
Of
to
course.
come home to. You could be a snowbird. You could be,
Yeah, absolutely.
so you don't have to be always away from your family. You could have a place here where you can always come back to.
Absolutely.
I
Yep.
I know there's another investor. He lives in Ecuador and he does that. And same things that you were saying. Like, he said that like for $5 Canadian, they can go out and have a plate of food, like half of a chicken with rice and plantains, right, on there and everything. And they're like, so he says people eat out a lot there, expats, because it's cheaper than actually eating in. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's exciting, and I think anyone that is thinking about like they would love to in the future, move somewhere or live somewhere else. Well, why not start exploring that now? Why not have look at ideas of how you can have other people pay for your retirement
Yeah.
home, those kind of things. And so what's next for you, Fernando?
Next for me is so you mentioned off the top in my intro, right? So obviously there's building what I'm building in Portugal, and I'm very
Mhm.
excited about that. We talked a lot about Portugal today. Listen, the self-storage piece is still a big part for me, right? And I'm going to continue to grow there. Um, but I want to move into coaching, or I am moving into coaching, and where that kind of came from is, and I'm sure you can, connect with this because of the journey you've been on as well.
Mhm.
I I've had the good fortune of having this, incredible career where I've worked for some small companies, but some bigger companies as well, and worked with some massive brands. And so I've just learned a lot. I've had all kinds of roles from being like a salesperson, so a direct contributor, and working in the trenches, so to speak, of doing my, 100 calls a day so that I could meet the numbers that I wanted to meet in terms of sales, to leading sales teams, to building sales teams at a startup right from scratch. I was employee number 6 in this company, and we, grew from there, to working with world-renowned brands and in different capacities as a general manager, as a sales leader, as a strategist. And so more recently, as I've been, really focusing in my real estate business on a bunch of networking calls, right? And as I have these calls, I start talking to people who are from various backgrounds. And I think people, especially in this space of real estate, they come from various types of backgrounds. There might be engineers, there might be, public safety, or in public safety. They might be teachers, they might be all kinds of different things. And sometimes we don't consider that they actually have no business background, none. But this is a business. If
Definitely.
you choose it to be, if you really want to make yourself an investor, that is a business. If you want to buy properties and just hold properties, you are a property owner. That is different. You might even be a landlord. But if you're an investor, the difference is you're running a business. And so I come across these people and they're talking to me about their challenges. And it's easy for me to look at it and be like, oh, well, that's not a big deal. Why don't you just take a look at this, have this conversation, go talk to this, go find this person. And in one phone call, sometimes I'm able to just help them move forward between past this obstacle that they actually looked at as like, how am I going to get past this? And so it started occurring to me more that like this actually makes me happy. Like I genuinely feel good. I feel value when I get off those conversations with people because I've helped them. I've contributed in
It's
a
an
way that
amazing
my
feeling. It really is an
it
amazing.
is, it's incredible, right? And in a
Mhm.
way that my corporate job could never satisfy me
Mhm.
because I was solving problems, sure, and they were problems for certain companies, sure, but did they contribute directly to the benefit of someone's life? No. And so again, talk about mindset, this shift into wanting to help people. I've decided to move into the space where, yeah, I can take that experience that I've again had the good fortune of building and bring it to entrepreneurs who are really just getting going, and even if you're a little more established, right, and you're struggling with, building sales, or working with maybe investor relations, or um branding, like all kinds of stuff that people are struggling with in their business, that's where I'm looking to help out.
That's
So
awesome.
that's the thing I think I'm excited about as well, is being able to get out there and really help people solve the problems that they're facing today.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that I know that feeling, and I know that corporate feeling too, because
Yeah.
I was doing process improvements. I was, improving things in the corporation, but it was all to help, you know, the people at the top. It was all to build company dreams instead of people's dreams. So, being able to, and I was a coach there too, but and I enjoyed that when I could actually work
Right.
with the actual team members and help them improve themselves. That was the best feeling. So bringing it into the real estate world, but I think like there is a big gap, Fernando, in sales when it comes to real estate investing. And I can help people with processes and that sort of stuff. I can help them with analysis and thing, but sales, I'm lacking on myself, even within my coaching business, etc., to be able to do that, to do it properly. That's something that, and also it's our mindsets that we were always like, everybody sees sales as that sleazy salesperson, the cowboy hat and the car dealership,
That's right. Yeah.
kind of thing too. So, but modern sales is about relationships. It's about um, knowing people and talking less and listening more, and those kinds of things. And I think yeah, that's an area that's, and asking for what you want if you know that it will help that person. So I think that's an area that we can all, as real estate investors, because when we are giving people an opportunity to invest in our thing, a lot of us are afraid to do that because we look at it as like, I'm begging these people for money instead of I'm solving a problem for them.
Right.
Right. So I think
Yeah.
that's like, that coaching area, I think you like huge niche there.
Yeah. And what you just said is one of the things that I talk to people about all the time, right? It's that mentality of, you're not asking um, investors to help you out, right? It's in the sense of, people do this all the time. Well, who's going to want to give me their money? Who's going to want to invest with me?
Mhm,
And it's like, if you got to stop thinking about it that way, and you have to really look at it as, you're giving them an opportunity to earn money on their money. They don't necessarily have the time to learn how to do this, right? So you're not going to them being like, hey, can you spot me a little bit of money? I'm kind of short on groceries this week. You're saying, like, I have this great opportunity. Now, that being said, you have to be responsible with their money, right? And as long as you are solid on your numbers, as long as you are careful in what you're doing, and things happen all the time, of course, but that integrity is important. And then you're able to go to them and say, I have an opportunity for you to put your money to work. You are equal opportunity in this with each other, because you have the ability to put their money to work, and they need your time and your expertise. So it's getting them around that thinking of, like, you're not asking for money, right?
mhm,
You're creating opportunities for investors and people with the capital to earn money, and which is what they're all looking for and what they need. So yeah, the mindset piece is a huge thing, and I think about it from the coaching side of it. If knowing what I know now, right, through life experience and through corporate experience and whatnot, if I could go back to the 20-year-old version of me and teach that person everything that I know now and how to approach clients, I probably would have been a millionaire by the time I was 30.
what would be your number one sales tip then for real estate investors?
Ooh, for real estate investors. I think the biggest thing that, working with a coach helps you on from that standpoint. So it's not a
Mhm.
sales thing per se, but I guess it kind of is because you're selling yourself, right?
Mhm.
Is leveraging partnerships. I think when people first start, they don't understand the power of partnerships, right? And what that can create for you. And then it is spending the time to talk to someone and get to understand what's important to them. I get on lots of calls with people now, and they will just talk at me for half an hour, 45 minutes more. And I just sit there and I'm like, I haven't said hardly anything yet. And I don't even know by the end of it what they're looking for from me. And whatever it is, I probably don't care because they have no idea what it is that I need. So if they're having the conversation with me to just talk about themselves, I'm like, okay, I hope you feel better about yourself. That's awesome. Congratulations. I probably won't talk to anyone else about them other than to be like, this person wasted an hour of my time just bragging about themselves to me,
Yeah,
right?
I wouldn't even bother. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Hmm.
And if they need something from me, they have no idea if I'm the right fit for them, right? I have no idea if I'm the right fit for them because they've not taken any time to get to know what it is that I need from this relationship.
Yeah.
They've just spent the whole time telling me how great they are and all the wonderful things that they've created. And so then you leave it and you're just like, I guess they don't value me or my time very much, right? So those are the two things. One, you know, partnerships are important. And two, when you're having those conversations with potential partners, your first thought in your mind before anything else is not what do I need from this person? It's what value can I bring this person?
Right.
And the only way that you can determine what value you're going to bring that person is by understanding what they value, right? So spend
Hmm.
some time, get to know them, care, genuinely care what it
Yeah.
is that they need, because maybe you're not the right fit for them. Debbie, you
Just
and I might have a conversation. Maybe we're not the right fit to work together, but that's okay because the next conversation that I have, because I'm spending time getting to know what they need and what they value, I'm like, we're actually not the right fit for each other either. But you know who's a great fit for you? Debbie. Let
yeah.
me introduce you to. So what happens when you do that? Now Debbie's talking to someone else. She recognizes that, you know, that other person isn't the right fit for you. But I remember talking to Fernando and they're a great fit for him. Let me make that introduction because he introduced me to this person over here,
Hmm.
which turned out to be great. So
Reciprocity.
always spend time getting to know who you're talking to, what's important to them, what they value, more so than you're concerned about what value you can bring
Yeah.
them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And it's hard. It's really hard to do that because as humans, we feel we need to, sell ourselves. We like to talk a lot. We think we need to put, like be busy talking. Like there shouldn't be any silence. I think like so it is hard. I know in my corporate job, I used to use my mute button a lot. I kept myself on mute
Yeah.
so that I could, avoid that and just actively listen to people. I had a conversation actually about a year ago with a guy that wanted me to invest in his company, in his opportunity, and he did that. He talked at me the entire time about him, and he came off, and I said nothing, but I asked questions because I was looking at raising capital, so I was looking at, you know, how is he structuring this land development deal, etc. So I would ask him questions, and he came off that call going, oh, that was like the best conversation ever. But he knew nothing about me. And I was like, no, this is not an opportunity. I'm not a passive investor. I'm an active investor.
Right. Right.
But he came off thinking he had the best conversation. And, for me, it was just like, yeah. And it really came through to me. Like, that's what Debbie, you should not do. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I didn't like
Absolutely.
the
Right.
way I felt in that. So
Because the person makes it very clear that they're there to take,
yeah.
right? that like, and no one think about that in anything outside of business, right? If you have friends that all they ever do is take, right? They're that emotional vacuum
Mm-hmm.
where they're just constantly, you know, taking whatever they can, but when you need them, they don't answer the phone, right? They're impatient. They don't listen to you. They just want to tell you like, "Oh, it's okay," and like, let's move on with our lives. Like it starts to drain on you, right? And it's because you find that this is a very one-sided relationship. Well, business is the same thing. We're all humans, and every interaction that we have, I don't care what you're doing, is a very human and personal interaction. You always have to remember that. And even in business transactions, there's still human interactions. And so you have to make sure that, especially when it's something as personal as using someone's
Life
savings,
savings. Yeah.
right? That they're planning to retire with in Portugal, hopefully. And you know, they're not just going to give it to anyone. They're not investing in your project, they're investing in you. But if you have not taken the time to get to know them, like how can you even say to them with any level of confidence, hey, I think we're a great fit to work together?
Yeah.
Based on what? So yeah, and you talked about sitting in silence. I think it's the other one that people do get uncomfortable with, and I think that's why they just talk and talk because they're uncomfortable and just sitting there and like waiting for the other
Mm-hmm.
person to say something, or at least giving them a window to say something. And if they're saying nothing, ask the question.
Then you ask them to get deeper, to get to
Yeah,
know them. Yeah. So
yeah,
if that silence is there, don't fill it with your own, fill it with another question where you can learn more about them.
correct.
So
Yeah,
that's awesome tips. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today, Fernando. I really appreciate it. So much insight. We talked about, I asked you here for Portugal, but we got into mindset, we got into sales, your wealth of knowledge. So how can people get a hold of you?
uh, probably the easiest way is through Instagram at FN Good. And it's just my name is Fernando Nunes, so FN good because well, I mean life's good, right? So that's where you can find me through other socials as well. But if you just look up my name, you should. I mean, this face is hard to hide, so it's pretty easy to find me there. So that would probably be the best way.
Awesome. And I will also put it edit it
Perfect.
into this video for you. So if you're interested in investing in Portugal, do reach out to Fernando. But he's, as he mentioned, he loves coaching, helping others. So, if there's anything that we talked about today that piques your interest, feel free to reach out to him and get to know him. Like just, get to know each other. And remember to actively listen and talk less.
That's right. And Debbie, I want to thank you so much for having me on here. It's been a pleasure talking with you and obviously having this opportunity to share. So thanks so much for doing this, for giving this platform for people to come out and share their stories.
It's my honor. I feel that the more we share our stories, the more we help each other. It's that creating that network of, and helping everybody get a step further in life.
Absolutely.
And it's wonderful. So if you like this podcast today, hit the like button, subscribe, because I have lots more coming and lots already in the hopper that's already there from other podcasts that would interest you. So sign up for, subscribe and hit the like. And if you're interested in being a guest, you don't have to have 20 years of experience. Everybody's at a different journey. You're always ahead of someone else that people can learn from. You have probably hit different problems as a novice investor that's, some successful already, longer they hasn't hit us yet, and you've overcome. So, reach out to me and you can share your story. So, oh, thanks, Fernando. You have a wonderful day. Thanks,
Thanks, Debbie,
everyone.
you too.
Take
Okay,
care.
take care.